You will hear two undergraduates doing a research methods course. A girl called Leela and a boy called Jake having a seminar with their tutor. Now you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24.
So the task I gave you both was to choose an article about a small-scale research project.
Yes.
You were then required to try to reproduce the research procedures in your own context, i.e. try it out for yourselves.
Yeah, and that's what we've done.
Great. So I'd like you to tell me a bit about the article and why you chose it.
Well, the article's written by two university lecturers who had started using crosswords to help their students revise terminology for exams.
And the crosswords were designed and set on computers.
And we selected the article because, well, it seemed an accessible topic, even though we weren't familiar with the technique. You know, using IT to design crosswords for higher education.
That's a good reason. So these lecturers wanted to see how well this innovation was received by their students.
Yes.
So how did you go about reproducing the research?
Well, we drew up a list of terms from one of our own modules and designed a crossword for revising these terms.
Then we asked our classmates to try out the crossword and give us feedback, their opinions on how they felt about using the technique.
Was it easy to find participants?
It wasn't easy at first, but then we convinced them that by taking part in the research, they were actually benefiting themselves by preparing for an exam, which is coming up later this term.
And it worked.
Good. So how did you find out what the students thought about doing the crosswords?
A questionnaire. The original article used a 2-page long questionnaire. There were lots of excellent questions on it, but the whole section on difficulties using IT is now obsolete. Old-fashioned even though it had only been written a couple of years ago.
So you designed a shorter version?
Yeah. Then we sent it to the 40 students by email and got 28 replies. I was taken aback by the fact that everybody we talked to thought this was a good return. I mean, the responses were well written. People had taken a lot of care, but I was really disappointed with the low numbers.
Yes, an important lesson to learn for an apprentice researcher.
Yeah.
So what results did you get?
Well, basically, the responses were extremely positive. The students said that doing the crossword on a computer helped them really focus on the work in hand and not be distracted, which is something that commonly happens with other ways of doing revision.
Yeah, that was really clear. But something that struck me was that having fun hardly featured in their responses, nor did anything to do with spelling of hard words, which I thought would be an obvious benefit.
No? Okay.
Respondents also said that doing the crossword hadn't really increased their general motivation to study, but that it had highlighted the gaps in their memory so they knew what further work was necessary.
Right. So how did your findings tally with those of the original researchers?
There were lots of similarities, but...
There were probably two main differences. We found that more males than females liked the technique, whereas the original study found the reverse.
Also, our respondents said they wouldn't mind doing a crossword as a final official exam, whereas in the original study, students said they would hate doing it even if it meant having a shorter test.
But of course, both sets of respondents said they'd be interested in doing more crosswords for informal purposes, revision, and so forth.
Right. So let's have a think about the whole project and what you've learned from doing it.
Well, it was very time-consuming.
Yeah, and I don't think we managed that aspect very well.
It could have been worse. I mean, we didn't have a lot of data, so we didn't have to spend ages processing it. And of course, we'd already done a course on numerical data processing, so there wasn't much new there.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, I think we designed our questions well so that they gave us manageable data.
Yeah, it really helped having the original study to guide us, as it were. And that helped us to see what a good research instrument is.
What a good questionnaire should be like.
Absolutely. We got a lot from that. But when we were writing up the project, I'm not sure whether we'll know how to acknowledge the work of the original study. You know, our referencing.
No, that's something we'll both have to work on in the future.
Actually, that part's been great. Finding ways to share and support another person.
That's the real plus from the project, learning ways to do that.
Well, it's obviously been very successful.
You're going to hear a lecture delivered by an actress on the difficulties that actors and actresses experience after graduating. First, look at questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon to you all again, and thanks for coming for the second lecture in the series, Drama After Graduating. For those of you who weren't here last week, my name is Jennifer Mackenzie Davis, and I'm one of those lucky ones, an actress with a job. I'm going to talk to you today about the difficulties actors and actresses face finding work. Not that any of you need reminding. It's a jungle out there, and you've got to be very hungry to survive. Are you hungry? Well, I'm afraid you're going to have to be, because if you aren't, you might as well pack your bags and forget all about acting as a career. And not just hungry, but also resolute in getting what you want. And of course, persistent. Not to mention gifted. Between 80 and 90% of you will be out of work at any one time. You are joining a group of people whose average time in employment is 12 weeks a year for men and 7 weeks for women. Why do we do it? We must be mad. And yet there are thousands more waiting to take our places if we fail. Still hungry? Good. Because this is where the interesting bit starts. Now we've got the stats out of the way. First of all, where do you look for work? Well, there's the Stage Door, the weekly newspaper which occasionally has a couple of decent jobs in it. And then there's the weekly list of jobs called TCR. But you need to subscribe to that with friends. It's very expensive, especially if you're out of work. About £20. No, sorry, £25 for 5 weeks. Then there's your agent. You'll discover sooner or later that you need an agent if you want to have access to the best work available. But how do you get an agent? Well, unless you're really very lucky and get taken on by an agent who just likes the look of you, you have to get an agent to see you in a live performance. This could be a good part in a play which shows off your talents, or a film role, or just a show reel of you performing your best speeches. I must say, I don't really know which is harder, getting the part without an agent in the first place, or getting an agent interested enough to come and see you. In other words, a real catch-22 situation. A word of warning. They don't usually travel more than a few hundred yards from their office. They're supposed to be working for you, but they actually behave like it's the other way round. As for showreels, if you want them to look at yours, you really need to tie them to a chair and force them to watch. You may find it difficult to get work without an agent, but it will be well nigh impossible without an equity card. Fortunately, things have changed. In the past, drama school students leaving here in July had what was known as a registered graduate equity card. This gave you 2 years to get an equity contract for work. Not that easy without experience, an agent or a full equity card. But even when you got your first job paid at equity rates, you received only a provisional equity card. The union was quite strict about membership, but the alternative was much harder and less likely to result in success. This provisional card could become a full one only after 30 weeks of work. Without it, you could forget the West End theatres, top tours and work in television. Now, however, things are a bit easier. After you finish from here, you automatically get your equity card. The downside of this is obviously that there are more people chasing the same number of jobs. But even before you start worrying about equity cards and your agent, you've got to establish yourself with photographs. Eye-catching and professional black and white photos, small postcard size for your publicity and CVs. There will be several sessions devoted to choosing the right photos that will show you off the way you are most likely to be cast.
Hey learners, I hope you did your practice with this video. If you are seeing value in this video, make sure you are giving it a thumbs up. It really makes a big difference. Thank you.